In the 1920s, Germany was the undisputed intellectual capital of the world. If you wanted the best education in science, philosophy, or the arts, you went to German universities. Yet within a decade, this highly sophisticated culture descended into a state-managed, mechanized genocide. We often reach for a specific historical myth to explain this collapse, the idea that an enlightened society was hijacked by a raving madman who hypnotized the masses. The historical record reveals something far more dangerous. Adolf Hitler operated with a patient, systematized ideology. He was a strict adherent to social Darwinism, believing that natural law mandated the strong to dominate and destroy the weak. Hitler regarded compassion, equality, and human rights as a sickness rotting humanity from the inside out, a virus of weakness he directly attributed to the Jewish people. To execute a vision this extreme, he needed a vulnerable population. The crushing, compounding humiliation of World War I, followed by the starvation and mass unemployment of the Great Depression, created a profound void. Millions of Germans were destitute, angry, and looking for a way out. You cannot simply walk into an educated society and preach the slaughter of the weak. Hitler understood that to achieve his ultimate goals, he first had to methodically groom the German people into willingly handing him control. This process began with a calculated deception. When Hitler took power in 1933, he intentionally suppressed his violent anti-Semitic agenda. He knew the general public wasn't ready to accept it, especially after early boycotts of Jewish businesses were met with middle-class disapproval. He chose to play the role of the pragmatic savior. The party adopted the slogan, "Brad and Work," launching massive infrastructure projects like the Autobahn. By slashing unemployment from 6 million to 4 million almost immediately, the regime bought the public's initial confidence. As trust in the economy grew, the regime expanded its reach into the social fabric through the Volksgemeinschaft, or the people's community. This social engineering project was designed to manufacture total social cohesion, tying every citizen's identity directly to the state. The regime established a harsh, impenetrable barrier to define exactly who belonged inside this pure German collective, and who was explicitly excluded as a scapegoat. For those inside the circle, the state made belonging incredibly rewarding. An organization called Strength Through Joy provided heavily subsidized cruises and vacations, rewarding compliant workers with luxuries they had never previously imagined. They offered aspirational goals to keep the public engaged. The regime heavily promoted the Volkswagen, the people's car, promising ordinary families a modern lifestyle and the freedom to explore their country. To ensure this loyalty lasted, they absorbed millions of children into state-run youth movements, where absolute ideological devotion was presented as a high-stakes adventure. The Volksgemeinschaft was a sophisticated psychological trap. By dismantling rival organizations and heavily subsidizing leisure, the Nazi state successfully made every aspect of a German citizen's life, their income, their social standing, and their family's future, entirely reliant on the regime. By 1935, the reality of Hitler's secret rearmament program began to strain the very economy he had promised to save. The country was running low on foreign currency, wages were stagnating, and domestic discontent began to simmer. Hitler needed a pressure valve for this unrest. He took the intensely unified population he had constructed and directed their collective anxiety toward the Jewish people, blaming them entirely for the nation's lingering economic hardships. This transition was formalized through the Nuremberg Laws. These sweeping decrees legally stripped Jews of their citizenship, banned marriages between Jews and non-Jews, and reduced an entire demographic to subjects without basic legal protections. The broader public offered virtually no resistance. After years of state-sponsored holidays, steady work, and social conditioning, their lives were now inseparable from the government passing these laws. The German public's silence at this threshold showed that the state's gifts, the cars, the vacations, and the steady work, had effectively overridden the impulse to protect those being pushed out. By November of 1938, the years of psychological grooming erupted into a physical climax during Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. In a campaign of state-sponsored terror, thousands of Jewish businesses were ransacked, over 1,000 synagogues were burned, and 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to concentration camps. The violence of the state was bolstered by a far more chilling reality. the willing participation and silent observation of ordinary civilian bystanders. The highly civilized nation of the 1920s now watched and often helped as their neighbors were dragged from their homes. In less than a decade, a society of doctors, artists, and educators had been conditioned to accept the brutalization of the weak as the natural order. Authoritarian hatred rarely begins with mass violence. It begins with the promise of stability. It weaponizes the human desire for community, and it relies on the slow, methodical erosion of human empathy. The only enduring defense against this psychological playbook is an unwavering commitment to the inherent worth and dignity of every individual.